if we go back to Santa Maria Novella, where the other cross by Giotto is hanging, you see it down there at the end of the room, and if we just turn to the left in the very room where we're looking there, on the left side, on that wall, is the Brunelleschian cross, the cross that sums up all of his insights into perspective in the year 1425. So here now we have the completion of the journey we just watched. Here we have this long story of individual artists looking at many other people's works and the general public offering comment and encouraging the move toward lifelike human draftsmanship. And then, in this moment, on this wall, in this work of art, we have the joining together of the tradition of naturalism in the arts, realism in the arts, trying to render the human body, and the new scientific knowledge that Brunelleschi has brought together in his research in Rome and the books that he's read and the experiments that he's tried. And it all is visible to us over on that wall. Here are people in the room, in the church, and we're looking over there at the painting of Jesus on the cross. The actual name of it is the Holy Trinity because it's a rendition of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So they're all there. But it is Jesus on the cross, and it's by Masaccio. And Masaccio was one of Brunelleschi's best friends, and Masaccio had been given all this information that Brunelleschi had acquired. And now, this is the first painting that we know about where someone uses Brunelleschi's theories. This is it. This is the first painting, 1425. Santa Maria Novella, Florence, the Trinity. I'm going to show you just a detail because you know it's the Trinity, but when you look at it from a distance, you can't see the dove. In this picture, you can. So the Father is at the top. The dove is there, the white figure. You can see right over Jesus' halo. That's the dove of the Holy Spirit. And then Jesus. So Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So there it is, the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit on the wall in Santa Maria Novella by Masaccio. Now, what is scientific about it? What is it that Masaccio is doing that he learned from Brunelleschi? What is it that he's doing that Brunelleschi learned by studying Roman architecture, by reading books, and by putting this new theory, this scientific theory that we call linear perspective, into practice? Well, if you look at our diagram there to the right of the painting, and if you imagine that lady with her white jacket and her purse over her strap there, and if you imagine her walking right up to the place that's marked on our diagram where those pyramids all converge at the floor, what our diagram shows us is how Brunelleschi has imposed his mathematical Euclidean geometrical scheme on that painting so that the figure on the cross, which is way up above you, will look to you, if you stand right in that place, will look to you as if the ceiling is moving away from you, the figure is up above you, the figures below him are the right size from your point of view, and that there's space behind Jesus, behind the cross, and up in the ceiling that is shown above the cross. So every detail in that painting is being rendered according to the Brunelleschian scheme so that you can understand that space. So it's a kind of spatial diagram or geometry that allows you, the artist, to put a person on a cross in an arch above him, all of those figures in the way that you can believe is real. And you'll all remember this is the system that we described to you earlier. It's essentially a graph on a piece of paper. This is how you do it. And this is the system, and this is what Brunelleschi will be using, Masaccio will be using Brunelleschi's system when he does that painting on that wall. Now, the key thing is, of course, it's all from the human point of view. So it's all calculated from a certain place. So when you stand in that place, then you see everything the way it's supposed to be. And that's true in any work that is organized by single point linear perspective. It's always from the point of view of the viewer. So if you think about it, that's the quintessential modern humanistic subjective, individualistic point of view, isn't it? Get what I mean? It's all you. It's all from your point of view. And that's what it is. It's a scientific system to render a painting from your point of view. And here's another graph which shows how your vision works when you stand at that point. You see, you look up at the cross on the left, and there's the diagram up on the right, which shows you how the lines of your vision move up into the painting. And so here's the painting again. And if you're standing right in front of it in the church, you will feel like you're right in front of those two people on the left and the right who paid for the painting. See, those are the donors, Mr. and Mrs. What's it. And they paid for that painting. And so Mr. Masaccio, when he painted the painting, they said, would you please put us in the painting? Sure, glad to. And they're buried underneath. There's a tomb underneath. So there's Mr. and Mrs. And if you're in the room, you feel like you're just like them. You feel like you're looking over at them, and the pilaster on the wall is behind them. Look up at the top of the pilaster that runs up the side. You see those pink capitals up there? You see, do they look like they have shadows on them? Yes. Those aren't real shadows. Those are illusions that the painter has painted in, so you down on the floor look up at it, and it's as if there's shadows on those little capitals. Isn't that pretty smart? Isn't that pretty impressive? Aren't you all pretty impressed? Or on the left pilaster has a little shadow down the left side, because, of course, Masaccio knows that the light is coming in from the door end of the room. So if you're standing there looking at that, you feel like there should be a shadow there, so he paints it. So here is the first complete work of art using Brunelleschi space. Look at, there's the arch over the Father's head. And look how you look up into the arch from down on the floor, and it's just as if you're really looking into a real arch. Remember, this is a flat wall. But he has created the illusion that it's actually an arch with coffered ceiling. The coffered ceiling is like it is in the Pantheon. That's where he got the idea. He's seen the Pantheon, and he's putting this in here. Isn't that interesting? And then the shadows, of course, are there, and so it looks like. Now, what about Jesus? What about Jesus on the cross? There he is. Well, does it look realistic? Yes. Does it look like a real person? Yes. Does his arms, his shoulders, do they look even more realistic than anything we've seen so far? Of course they do. Of course they do. The shadows on his eyes, his nose, his beard, the hair falling on the shoulder, all these things, you now have created in this work by Brunelleschi a completely realistic rendition of a human being on the cross, head drooped down, eyes drooped down, all of it joined together in this work on that wall in this church, the very church where the Giotto hangs at the front of the church, on a flat wall. And when you look at that picture, you really have a sense of how much flat the wall is. You see, when you look at it from over here with the light, it's very clear to you that it's a flat wall. It's plaster. And yet when you stand there, right there at that rope, and you look straight up, you would swear that those pilasters are sticking out and that the light on it is there and that that's how it looks. So it's an amazing, amazing achievement. And just think, here you have in this painting, in this room, at this moment, 1425, that whole long journey, 200 years, rendering Jesus on the cross, trying to make it real, make it look human, and now in 1425, they have a tool, they have a technique that will allow them to do it so perfectly that from here forward, by the time we get to Vermeer is going to be able to render a room with its shadow and with its light and with the individuals so perfectly that we will swear they're alive in that room. They're going to be so real.